Let's jump right into it. Welcome to this explainer, where we're going to embark on a seriously vital journey of unlearning. We are stepping straight into the modern university to decode those hidden, ongoing structures of colonial power that are, right now, actively shaping our world. If you're an activist, a student, or really just someone who's ever felt that the standard stories we're taught about history and progress conveniently leave out some crucial voices, well, you're absolutely in the right place.
So we have to start with a really foundational question. When exactly is the post-colonial moment? You might naturally think it began the exact, literal day a newly independent nation lowered an empire's flag and raised its own. Boom, done, right? But what if the true answer is way more complicated? What if we are actually still living right inside that transition?
Here is our roadmap for decoding the modern world today. Consider this a vital toolkit for critical thinkers navigating modern institutions. We'll cover why it's not a historical date, dive into the native informant paradox, check out modern echoes of extraction, build a methodology of persistent critique, and finally, wrap up with the intellectual's ethical duty.
Okay, Section 1. Not a historical date, the illusion of the endpoint.
We need to shatter a pretty common assumption right out of the gate. Colonialism didn't just cleanly end on an Independence Day. It's not a neat little finish line. Instead, the post-colonial moment is a continuous, living, breathing process. It emerges as societies have to constantly confront, reinterpret, resist, and, sometimes totally inadvertently, reproduce inherited colonial legacies. It's not a celebratory endpoint at all. It's a critical, messy juncture of ongoing negotiation.
Moving to Section 2, the native informant paradox, and who actually gets to write the truth. Historically, the native informant was someone utilized by colonial anthropologists. Their job? To translate local knowledge so the colony made sense to Western authorities. But Gayatri Spivak, a truly brilliant theorist, takes this dusty old anthropological term and turns it into a massive spotlight for today. She shows us how global systems still demand these authentic voices to translate local realities for Western understanding. Basically, an old historical figure has morphed into a permanent structural position in global academia.
Which brings us to a jarring but absolutely essential quote from Spivak. To inform is to betray. Now hold on, she's not warning us about some intentional, backstabbing personal betrayal. It's structural. Think about it. When shared community knowledge is extracted and turned into raw data for an external imperial or academic authority, the very act of informing completely alters the power dynamic. The speaker gets caught between two worlds, structurally silenced by the very system demanding they speak.
And when those local voices are forced to contort themselves to fit into those dominant frameworks just to be heard, that is what Spivak calls epistemic violence. It's the active silencing and overriding of marginalized realities. It's not physical violence, sure, but make no mistake, it is a profound silencing that happens right under our noses, inside our libraries, our classrooms, and our global policies.
That brings us to Section 3, Modern Echoes of Extraction, From Land to Knowledge.
Let's do a quick comparison of the past and the present. Historical colonialism relied heavily on military force for direct rule, specifically to extract land and labor. Fast forward to modern neocolonialism today. Instead of armies, we have international financial institutions, global academic markets, and development discourses. And what are they extracting? Knowledge and authenticity. It's a new flavor of extraction entirely wrapped up in global capitalism, but structurally it mirrors those historical colonial.
Let's look at Section 4, the power of persistent critique, which is really our methodology here.
For all the activists and students out there doing the work, here is your daily checklist for identifying epistemic violence. First, we absolutely have to interrogate those grand narratives of progress. Second, destabilize binaries that society tells us are just natural, things like civilized versus primitive. Third, always expose who is actually benefiting from cultural disclosure. Fourth, recognize the deep heterogeneity of communities instead of using lazy, homogenizing labels. And finally, you have to constantly ask, who remains structurally unheard in this room? That is persistent critique. It's a muscle you have to flex every single day.
So how do we actually put this theory into practice? For the university educators tuning in, consider this your playbook for getting critical perspectives into your lessons. Start by analyzing current news media in class. Have your students hunt for that native informant framing of local voices. Next, assign projects where they literally trace university or NGO funding. You'd be amazed how quickly that uncovers neocolonial financial patterns of compliance. And of course, audit and rewrite your own syllabus to amplify counter-discourse and subaltern histories. This is how we drag abstract theory right into the real world.
Section 5. The intellectual's ethical duty and navigating privilege.
Consider this really profound reality. Truth is never neutral, and it is certainly never innocent. It is completely entangled with institutions, archives, languages, and raw power relations. Because of this massive entanglement, the postcolonial intellectual's ultimate constituency cannot just be the university, or a corporation, or the state. Our ultimate constituency has to be truth itself, and working within Western institutions while actually honoring that truth, well, that requires a ton of ethical reflexivity.
The crucial takeaway here is that we have to cultivate what the source beautifully calls an ethical stubbornness. When huge corporations wave funding in your face in exchange for compliance, or when governments start leaning heavily on nationalism to silence dissent, the ethical intellectual has to hold the line. Honestly, it's uncomfortable. It might cause alienation, but it is an absolute non-negotiable.
In your mental activist toolkit, here are your rapid revision notes. Ready? The postcolonial is an ongoing process, not a date. The native informant is a dynamic that absolutely persists today. Epistemic violence actively silences the marginalized. True resistance demands persistent, daily critique. And above all else, intellectuals have to ethically navigate their privilege without ever falling into the trap of simply speaking for the oppressed.
As we wrap up this explainer, I really want to leave you with a provocative thought to chew on. When you step back out into your university classroom, your workplace, or the public sphere today, ask yourself, when you speak up, are you truly speaking truth to power, or are you just becoming its newest informant, neatly providing data for its archives? Thank you so much for joining me on this journey of unlearning. Stay stubborn and keep asking the hard questions.